How can meeting a stranger change your life? The story of Melchizedek and Abraham is a bit like that. It's a short, almost mysterious moment, but it says so much about our choices and our connection to something bigger than ourselves. Welcome to our show, where we explore the wonderful stories of the Bible together.
Hi, A. That's right. Today, we're not just telling an old story. We're going to see how this meeting, from thousands of years ago, shines a light on things we still experience today. Things like making big decisions, being generous, and feeling thankful.
First, let's set the scene. We're in the first few chapters of the book of Genesis. It's right in the middle of the stories about the first people and patriarchs. This story isn't random. It's part of the bigger story of God's promise to his people.
And right before our scene, something huge happened. Abraham, who was still called Abram at this point, had just won a big battle. He did it to rescue his nephew, Lot, who had been taken prisoner.
So, we have two main characters. On one side, there's Abram. He's the victorious leader coming home from the fight. On the other side, a mysterious person suddenly appears. His name is Melchizedek. He's described as the king of Salem and a priest of God Most High.
The scene takes place in the Valley of Shave. Abram is returning with all the treasures from the war and the people he freed. The big question is, what's going to happen now? How will he handle this victory? And that's when something unexpected happens.
Okay, let's tell the story. Abram is on his way back from the battle. You can imagine he's tired, maybe even a little stressed out after the fight. He's about to meet the king of Sodom, who he also helped.
But before that meeting with the other king, someone else appears. It's Melchizedek, the king of Salem, which would later become Jerusalem. He comes forward, and he isn't carrying weapons or a peace treaty. Instead, he brings bread and wine.
This was a powerful moment. It broke the cycle of war. And then, he spoke a blessing. This is the very heart of the story. He said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand."
Abram's response was just as amazing. He met this priest and realized they worshiped the same God. So he didn't just accept the blessing. He gave him a tithe, which is a tenth of all the spoils he had recovered.
Exactly. That's the decisive moment. The meeting itself. The exchange of a blessing for a tithe. It wasn't something he was forced to do. It was an act of faith and a sign of mutual respect.
And Abram was taking a real risk. He could have kept all the spoils for himself. That's what winners did. But by giving a tenth away, he was letting go. He was showing that he knew the victory wasn't from his strength alone.
He discovers he's not alone in his faith. This king priest isn't from his family or even his people, but he worships the exact same God Most High. This was an amazing confirmation for Abram. It broadened his whole spiritual world.
So, the change in him is huge. Abram the warrior chief is now Abram the man of faith. He shifts from a mindset of taking to one of giving and gratitude. And right after this, he actually turns down the treasure that the king of Sodom offers him.
And the consequences reach far beyond Abram's personal story. The figure of Melchizedek and Abram's action will echo throughout the entire Bible. They become a model for a royal priesthood, an idea that is picked up again much later on.
So if we look for the main lesson, we really see the human angle. Abram shows both wisdom and courage. He isn't carried away by his victory in battle. Instead, he chooses a spiritual act of gratitude.
And on a spiritual level, it's really interesting. God shows up here in a surprising way. He appears through a stranger, someone who isn't part of the official family line. It shows that God's presence isn't just found where we expect it to be.
Exactly. This story really opens up new ideas. In the Bible, it sets the stage for a king and a priest for everyone. It shows that God's plan is much bigger and more mysterious than the characters could ever imagine at the time.
And we have to respect that it's a little complicated. The story doesn't give us all the answers about who Melchizedek is. He's left as a bit of a mystery. This invites us to focus on what the meeting itself really means.
So, how can all of this speak to us today? This story makes us think about our own big choices. You know, those moments after a challenge or a success, when an unexpected meeting shows us a different path.
We can ask ourselves a question. What's the battle I'm coming back from right now? Maybe it's a finished school project or a tough time I got through. And what's the unexpected blessing that's showing up?
And when that happens, what decision do I need to make? Do I choose to be thankful instead of proud? To be generous instead of keeping everything for myself? Do I recognize that there's something bigger going on?
Here's a simple idea for this week. We could take a moment to think of a recent blessing in our lives. Then we can do something to show we're grateful. Or we could just reread the story in Genesis chapter 14.
So, to wrap it all up, here's the main thing to remember. The story of Melchizedek blessing Abraham reminds us of something important. In the middle of our choices, our struggles, and our successes, a much bigger story is unfolding. It's a story of blessing that came before us and is waiting for us too.
This blessing is at the very heart of the next part of the story. That's when God makes his covenant with Abram. We'll explore that special moment in our next episode.
Before we go, let's take a moment for a short prayer. Lord, please open our minds to your word. Through the story of Melchizedek and Abraham, help us see our own challenges. Help us welcome your call and move forward with more truth, trust, and faith. Amen.
And we'll leave you with this question. What part of this story connects most with your life today? Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of our journey. See you soon.